Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel where we're going to talk all things motorsport. So, maybe you saw a TikTok of Carlos Sainz to the song Smooth Operator, or maybe you saw a meme of George Russell on X, or maybe you started watching Drive to Survive on Netflix. Either way, you just got introduced to this huge sport and you have no clue where to begin. Well, don't even worry because this is the right place to start. This video is a crash course on everything you need to know about Formula One before you start watching your first race. Alright, so let's get into it. First off, what is Formula One? Formula One is the highest class of international racing, and it's also the fastest racing in the world. The word formula refers to the set of rules that drivers and teams have to adhere to. Formula One is the highest, and then it's Formula 2, Formula 3, and so on. There are 10 teams with 2 drivers. In each team, there are also team principals, engineers, pit crews, media, and so many other people in the paddock that make the race work the way it is. And we're not going to get into it this video, but we might get into it in a later video. Contracts expire and drivers find different teams, which is silly season, and we'll get into that in a later video. The season lasts from about 8 to 9 months, depending on how many races there are, and there is a break for the summer for about 3 weeks. Formula One races on all different circuits in all different countries, and it kind of changes every now and then. There are street circuits, track circuits, road circuits, and night races and day races. Now that you know a little bit more background about Formula One, let's get into how a race weekend works. There are 2 different types of race weekends, normal and sprint, and we'll get into the normal one first. The race weekend starts with Thursday, which is media day. Media day is when all the drivers do their conferences and they do the little games on social media and stuff like that. Next up is Friday, which is free practice day. Free practice is when the drivers get to go around the track for an hour and just make sure that everything's working correctly and they're used to the track. There are 2 free practices on Friday. Every driver is required to give up at least 1 free practice to a rookie that hasn't had 2 Grand Prix start. Next up is Saturday, which is qualifying day, otherwise known as quali. It starts off with 1 more free practice called FP3, and then they get into qualifying a few hours later. Qualifying follows a knockout elimination system with 3 sessions called Q1, Q2, and Q3. Qualifying sets up the grid for Sunday. Q1 lasts 18 minutes, and the slowest 5 do not get to compete in Q2 or Q3. They are stuck in that position. Q2 lasts 15 minutes, and it's the same thing again. The slowest 5 do not get to compete in Q3. Last but not least, it's Q3, which lasts 12 minutes and sets up the first 10 places. Alright, it's finally Sunday and they're finally racing. So what happens before they race? First they arrive and then the driver's parade happens, which is usually involving classic cars or the FIA parade truck, and they just go around the track and say hello to everyone in the audience. Next up, the pit lane opens and they can get into the formation lap. The formation lap warms up their tires and they make sure everything's running correctly, and it also gets them into their grid position. And then it's lights out and away they go. Typically, a race lasts from around 80 to 100 minutes. They do a series of laps around the track, and depending on how long the track is how many laps there's going to be, and here's the mathematical equation for that. A sprint weekend is a little bit different. They do media day on Thursday as always, and then Friday they do FP1, and then they get straight into quali. Saturday is a sprint shootout, which is basically a quali for the sprint. Next up is the sprint race, which is basically just a shorter race and just gives them more points. And then next is Sunday racing as usual. Just a disclaimer, the 2024 season has a couple of races that are shifted a day earlier. 2 of them, Bahrain and Saudi Arabia, are shifted a day earlier to accommodate for the holiday, and the Las Vegas GP is shifted ahead earlier so that Europeans can watch the race in the morning. Alright, so you want to race, now what? Here is the score breakdown for a normal weekend race. First place gets 25 points, and then it goes all the way down to 10th place, which gets 1 point. Everyone who scored 11th to 20th does not get any points. These points will count towards World Drivers' Championship. The first, second, and third place will be on the podium at the end of the race and they get a trophy. If you win a sprint race, the first place gets 8 points and then it goes all the way down to the 8th place, which gets 1 point. There's also the fastest lap. The driver with the fastest lap can get 1 point extra if they placed 10th or higher. A driver can also win driver of the day. At some point towards the end of the race, the fans can vote for their favorite driver of the day, and they don't win anything, they just get bragging rights. There are also a whole lot of rules that can get drivers disqualified or have penalties against them and a whole bunch of other things. But yeah, so we're not going to get into that this video, but I can make a whole other video on all the penalties and things like that. Another thing you need to know is the tires. There are 3 different sets of tires that drivers are required to use during the race. There's hard, medium, and soft. The harder the tire, the longer it lasts. However, the less grip you have. Drivers are also required to have a pit stop at least once during the race. The last thing we're going to talk about today is the flags. And we're only going to get into the 4 main flags that you see during a race. First up is the green flag. The green flag means that the track is clear and you can continue racing. A yellow flag means that you need to slow down because there's a hazard in the way. Next up, that usually follows that, is a red flag, which means you need to stop the race. And last but not least, the checkered flag, which means the race is done. Alright, that's pretty much all I have for you guys today. Stay tuned for my next video, which is going to be a Formula 1 dictionary. So if I said anything in here that is like, I have no clue what that even means, don't worry because a video is coming on that very soon. Thanks, guys!